Welcome to another episode of the Neoliberal Round podcast. Today is the federal holiday, public holiday, for Juneteenth. On June 19th, 1865, enslaved African Americans in Texas were told that they were free. A century and a half later, people across the U.S. continue to celebrate the day, which is now a federal holiday. Juneteenth is an annual commemoration of the end of slavery in the United States after the Civil War has been celebrated by African Americans since the late 1800s. President Biden signed legislation last year that made Juneteenth, which falls on June 19th, a federal holiday after interest in the day was renewed during the summer of 2020 and the nationwide protests that followed the police killings of Black Americans, including George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. Now, there has been a noticeable increase in Juneteenth celebrations across the United States over the past few years, with this year's holidays coming just over a month after a white gunman killed 10 black people at a supermarket in Buffalo, one of the deadliest racist massacres in recent U.S. history. I will talk about this particular massacre in a few minutes, but let us continue with our story. We'll be right back after these messages. It is a very significant day for black people, for African Americans in this country, in the U.S., black and brown people, people who were formerly subjugated by their masters. And when slavery was abolished, and then they received the declaration that what it was, same thing happened in Jamaica, where slavery was abolished in 1833. But it was not until 1865 that we had the Emancipation Proclamation. So slavery was abolished in 1865 in all of the colonies that were under British rule. But the proclamation was received there because apparently some people got the news on these islands, say Jamaica and all of the other English-speaking colonies, that slavery was abolished. But a lot of people didn't get the news. They never had digital media or social media where you are getting the information as it is happening. Okay? And they never had express service. So when slavery was abolished and the news was sent, it took 30 years after, but you cannot tell me that news took 30 years to travel. No. They got the news probably within the year. But some people, or the people on some of these islands, the plantocracy, okay, the plantation masters and owners and so on, they did not, the status quo in these islands, who were largely connected to the status quo in Britain, they did, the thing is, if they announce that slavery is abolished, then the slaves would have left the plantation immediately. And there'd be no one to work the plantation. So although slavery was abolished, what they did was that over the from 1865 up until 1864, they worked on a plan to ensure that they set up some kind of labor to man the plantations so as to prepare for the lack of labor, because the slaves would have left the plantation, they would have nobody to work it, and then that would have been costly for them as well. So what they did was to set up what is known as indentured servitude, where that is why in some parts of the Caribbean you have a lot of Indians and some Chinese, because you had indentured servitude, bond servants, people who were probably incarcerated or owed some debt or whatever. Okay, they were sold off to the British plantocracy. Okay, and they had to work over, and then they were brought in to work the plantation, and they had to work for a period of time, and after they worked for a period of time, they could buy back their freedom. But that is how it happened. So anyway, but this particular discussion is not about indentured servitude. This particular discussion was about what is happening in terms of the abolishment of slavery. And bring it right back to the United States of America, where in Juneteenth yesterday, which was Monday, we just celebrated the Emancipation Proclamation of the emancipation of slaves. Oh, sorry, not the proclamation, sorry, the emancipation of slavery. Now, when I just came to this country in 2009, and I've been living here for over 12 years, I just couldn't understand, why is it that we don't have Emancipation Day in this country, with marking the end of slavery? We don't have that. It's not a big thing. It's as if nobody was talking about it. When I came here in 2009, nobody was talking about it. Nobody. And I was like, I thought you went to school. Did they do any kind of did you know before recently that Juneteenth was? Did you know what Juneteenth was?
No, probably at the time, yes, I was probably getting the knowledge of it. I was learning. But through the years, no one has really spoken about it. And
that's what I'm talking about.
From my memory.
See, and so that when I came in Jamaica, it's a big thing. Emancipation Day, and they have independence. Emancipation Day is huge. It's a holiday. It's a big celebration of dance and music and drumming and church service and commemoration and food and family get together and concerts all over. It is one of the, and you have, and they have some fest or some big Jamaican reggae festival, and it is huge. It is amazing. And you come here, it's like, it's not significant. The fact that you got that your enslavement for your people, enslavement was abolished. It's not significant. Of course, it would suggest that, you still live in a country, the same country from which you were enslaved. I know you're free to live in that country, but in a sense, it's not, because you know why the problem. You know what I think the problem is. In one sense, in Jamaica, we don't have a kind of racial issue in terms of we're not categorized, and we don't think in categories. We're not conditioned to think in terms of racial terms, like when you complete an application, they'll ask you what your ethnicity is and if you're Hispanic or non-Hispanic, or if you're black or white. That is never on the question. That is not something, we're not conditioned to think in those ways. Here we're conditioned to think in those ways. We are conditioned to think in racial terms and ethnic terms and in categorical terms. For what purpose, I don't know, but if you are a herder with goats and you want to exert more control over your goats or your cattle or your herd, then you put them in categories. You separate them. When the slaves were taken from here, they were put in categories, but not in terms of likeness. They were separated so that they won't be able to have that. But in a sense, the way in which we control based on the outcome determines how we categorize. Okay, we separate people when we want to exert a particular kind of control, but we put them in categories when we want to exert another kind of control, but in a group kind of way. But maybe I'm thinking that is the thinking, because here you are living in a country where you are free. They still have statutes in this country that commemorate former slave owners and people who did injustice to black people. While black people want them down, there are those who will want to commemorate them. While on the other, they're being celebrated. While on the other spectrum, we're not celebrating Juneteenth. And the next thing that we need to remember that the other spectrum is the people here, the Americans, I'm about to be American, so I'm going to use the word we are conditioned to think in a particular way. Not only, this is important, this is an important point, very important point I'm about to make here, is that emancipation, I said where people are conditioned to think in, but to celebrate Juneteenth on that same point of thinking in categorical terms, when black people and brown people are celebrating their emancipation, what's happening with the white people? What are they doing? Well, first of all, they're passing laws in Florida that ban critical race theory, that ban people to think. So in a sense, to have a day like this, in one sense, would vilify black people, but in another sense, would bring about feelings of guilt and shame, probably, because we're already seeing people outlawing the critical race theory in schools. So the thing is it that it is not a major thing as a country, because part of the country is consisted of those who are responsible, or heritage of the people who are responsible for the same people who did injustice to the people who are the legacies of those people who want to now celebrate it. So in a sense, some people feel guilty while other people experience catharsis. How do you bridge the gap between those who will experience catharsis from an action and those who will experience guilt and despair, probably? And that's the challenge, in a sense. While in country, and then you have some countries, like some other Caribbean islands, are more monolithic. And you look at the demographics. So because Jamaica is a monolithic country, because in a sense, majority of the people are black in that country. So it is, in a sense, the black people come together, and they are the ones they make it a big thing. Black people in this country, do they make it a big thing? Then, because if it is then, that in some of these countries that are monolithic, but look at Trinidad and Tobago. Trinidad and Tobago is not really monolithic. It's a dualistic country in the sense that it's 49% Trinity, 49% of the population of Trinidad is African American or Indian, while it's split 50-50 or 49-51 between African Americans, not African, black people, and Indians in Trinidad and Tobago, just so you know. It's split, but in a sense they still celebrate independence and so on. But in America, it's not a monolithic country, in a sense. And the issue of this and the issues of categories are pronounced in terms of how things are organized and so on and so forth. So I believe that's why too. And I said to you earlier, before we started the recording, and I asked that we should probably do a recording here, because the next thing the onus is then on African Americans to lobby to make and they are powerful African Americans, to lobby to make the country, to make the Juneteenth an important celebration. This is how Jews can make it a holiday and don't go to work. They can take off on those days, on Jewish holidays. Then for black people and brown people in this country, they should be able to take off from work. They should be able to take off from work, and they should have celebrations, and they should be able to, and research. But I said to you, what they want to do, they want to gather at 52nd Street or certain and march. Like, I mean, I said to you, where is the celebration? You know, the celebration of dance and music and of talent and progress and where we are since slavery, where we have come. But the fact that we're gathering to march would suggest then that we haven't really experienced change, or we experienced some change, or our life has always been about struggle, so that all we know is to struggle or to work or to march or to resist. I said to you, several black scholars are now writing, trying to reimagine the black slave as not just victims, but as resistors, as fighters, looking at the resistance. And then I said to you some time ago, Kyrie Irving is the vilification of his black duppies. And I use poetic terms to speak. If you understand poetry, you understand exactly what I'm saying. But still thinking about reimagining the black man and the slave within neoliberal capitalism, we're also now thinking about bringing it right back to Kyrie Irving being the vilification of his black duppies. You know, I'm going to talk about to vilify, or the vilification of something of his black duppies is a very important word in African. If you're African American, you probably will understand, or Caribbean. Duppies mean ghosts. And I'm here alluding to his past, when these people were locked in chains or were forced beyond their will to do certain things. People who were subjugated and coerced into complicitly to comply with their body being penetrated to provide sexual gain and economic gain. And they could not do anything. Probably, yes, they tried. And because we talk about the resistance of the black man to do what they could do, but largely they were estranged from any kind of individualism and humanhood or humanness or the humanity, so to speak. So here we have a lot of black people are seen as very aggressive and they resist. And I said to you, in a sense, it's a vilification, because they come from, when they walked off the plantation, it was a victory. It was reclaiming when they realized that they were free, reclaiming their individuality, reclaiming and I used the word reclaim, because in a sense there was nothing to reclaim, so because many of them their parents came here as slaves, and they were born into slavery. All they knew were slavery and to be subjugated. That's all they knew. And what is it? Okay. But they also knew what was passed down to them from their parents, who fought to try to ensure that they had a sense of the individual, a sense of worth, okay, which was lacking. So when you see people like Kyrie Irving, who resisted the vaccination, than many black people who resisted this kind of mandate to be vaccinated because they are suspicious of the system. We talk about the history, the record of people who have been abused to these people, and so that, and the pattern of resistance, yes, and in a sense, and that they are able to exercise their relatively gained freedom, which they're still fighting, because it wasn't until 1964, I believe, that 65, or when was the black people got civil rights in this country. The Civil Rights Act was passed in this country, in the U.S. Because so they were enslaved, but they still never had rights. But no, he has rights. In a sense, it's a vilification for him. It's a victory for him. It's a sense of it's a new sense of worth. The fact that you can now demonstrate that, all of that, and I said people. And that's the way and so Juneteenth, but I said to you, Juneteenth is all, we're still marching, and where is the celebration? Why can't we make it into a big celebration instead of just marching in the sun?
Now, I had said previously in the recording just now that it's Juneteenth, which marks the end of slavery in America. It's not something that seems to be a major celebration, the kind of celebration that you have on Independence Day, marking the independence of America as a nation, but marking the end of the subjugation of a people. It's major, and I had indicated that it seems to have not been the way in which we're not making it a big thing, a big thing, in a sense. It's not, as if it is not significant. There are small gatherings here and there. And in fact, I was just speaking to a young man who went to work today. He works at FedEx, an African-American young man. And I said, do you know that today was a federal holiday? He said, no, today's a federal for what? It's Juneteenth. He said, Juneteenth? What's that? And, even African-Americans don't know what Juneteenth is. A lot of us, a lot of young people. I mean, they know that they are free, but when did this happen? What is significant? How significant is it? But as I said, that the significance of that, of marking the end of slavery, clashes with something else. It clashes with those who harbor guilt feelings, or who may have guilt feelings as a result of this. So it's, but then again, I say to you that I was looking at Jamaica and seeing that Jamaica, Texas, slavery, Africans enslaved didn't know that slavery was abolished until 1965, because they lived in Texas. And Texas was one of those states that were not part of the original Union, United in 1776 or 1775, and they fought during the Civil War. Okay, they fought in the Civil War. Texas was opposed to ending slavery, and they were opposed to the Union and on this particular issue as well. And because of their dependence on that kind of labor, when the world had found the other states had found a way to move on from using slave labor, and the kind of the kind of change in the terms of the revolutionary change in terms of how we think about work, how we think about labor, how we think about technology, how we think about how society is arranged, in terms of economically, that was changing. So that we talk about wage labor as against another kind of sexual labor. Slavery. And so Texas dependent on this kind. So for them, I guess they fought fiercely not to end slavery. But after, they were not part of a union that had declared slaves free. But after they lost, after they lost to the Union Army, then Texas became part of the Union, in a sense. Then all the slaves also who were living in Texas, the African American slaves who were living in Texas, they were also accorded freedoms. The freedoms now that were accorded to the other states is now extended to those states that were opposed to slavery and were fighting against ending slavery. And so the law that Abraham Lincoln had signed in January of 1963 that allowed that abolished slavery or ended slavery, that did not extend to those in Texas until after the Civil War ended. But when we compare that, but however, we must commend Texas because Texas was one of the first states to make Juneteenth, which is a federal holiday. We'll be right back after these messages. Now, concerning the issue of this year's holiday coming just over a month after a white gunman killed 10 black people at a supermarket in Buffalo, for those of us who don't know the story, you can refer to the Times or to the Associated Press. But a young man, I think 18 years old, from Buffalo, a teenage young man who is enthralled and enticed by white supremacist ideology known as replacement theory, opened fire at a supermarket in Buffalo on Saturday. Replacement theory. Opened fire at a supermarket in Buffalo on Saturday, methodically shooting and killing 10 people and injuring 3 more. Almost all of them black, in one of the deadliest racist massacres in recent American history. The authorities identified the gunman as 18-year-old Peyton S. Grendon of Cockling, a small town in New York's rural southern tier. Mr. Grendon drove more than 200 miles to mount his attack, which he also live-streamed, and police said it was a chilling video feed that appeared designed to promote his sinister agenda. Now, why am I saying this? I have said to you that we have this wrong. We have this wrong. We will never be able to deal with the issue of gun violence with bad analysis. I said to you, the logic that people have is not right. Bad analysis, or from a logic that may seem logical, but it's nonsensical. We start from a logic saying that guns kill people. Guns don't kill people. But we start from that logic to say that guns kill people, and then move from that logic to curb gun violence. Move from that logic to put restrictions on the gun, because we start from a logic saying that guns kill people, when guess what? That is not the logic. I say to you, guns are just tools of people. People kill people. That is the logic that we must begin with. If we as a society, if we're going to deal with the issue of gun violence, rising gun violence, we have to take the right approach, and it begins with doing good analysis. People kill people because life is about people and how people relate. So the issue then here, it is with human nature. It is with people. And I say to you, when we start to look, so therefore, we have to take a multifaceted approach. I said to you, I used to live in Jamaica. I'm from Jamaica, and Jamaica has the most restrictive policy. And what that has done is that it has created a gun for drug trade. A gun for drug trade. Okay? So that now the criminal elements have access to guns. And they created a whole market, a whole trade with Haiti in the 80s and preceding years, where they give them drugs, give Haiti drugs, and the criminal elements exchange that for guns, and they give them guns. And Jamaica has one of the highest crime rates with the most restrictive policy. So I'm saying to you, it is not. It is people. People are creative. People, we have brains. Guns don't have brains. People have brains. People create to make things serve them. People create tools so that they can utilize tools to serve their evil or their best intentions. So if you want to deal with the issue of gun violence, you deal with it's people we have to deal. The issue is people. Deal with poverty, yes? Because poverty correlates with rising crime and violence, okay? Deal with the issue of extremism. And I just read to you where the 18-year-old guy, Peyton, in Buffalo, killed 10 African-American people because he was practicing replacement theory, a theory that is part of what is known as a white supremacist ideology. White supremacist ideology. As we celebrate Juneteenth, as we celebrate the end of the subjugation of a people, the end of the enslavement of a people, we have people who are actively trying to replace those people through violence. Replacement theory. And they're doing that, and they feel justified in doing that. And I said to you, people and their wild intentions, it is people. So what we have in this country is a rise of extremism. Deal with the issue of extremism. Okay? Deal with how people think. Reorganize their minds and their thoughts. That's what I said, the social decay in society, what people are feeding their brains on. I mean, listen to the music. You listen to the music. It is kill this, kill that. No value for humanity. No respect for the other. So if people walk around feeding their minds, young people walk around feeding their minds with things that says that devalue the individual, you know what we have on our hands? A catastrophe. Thank you for listening again to another episode of the Neoliberal Round Podcast. Please support the Neoliberal Round Podcast by going to Anchor, anchor.fm/the Neoliberal, TheNeoliberal/support. And remember, the Neoliberal Round is brought to you by the Neoliberal Corporation that is serving the world today to solve tomorrow's challenges. Visit us at theneoliberal.com or RonaldoCMcKenzie.com. Walk good.